Oh dear, the first owner in history to control the entire Power Rangers franchise, not tied to toy designs or footage from Japan, completely wide open, and they've ground to a halt after 5 seasons. They actually lasted less time than Disney did, who had lasted less than the initial Saban era. So if you were placing your bets on Hasbro finishing in 3rd place, let us know how you did. The difference, of course, is that at least for now, Hasbro aren't selling up, and to their credit, they haven't stopped everything completely, but this was not what I was expecting when they took over the brand and stated that they'd be fully executing it across Hasbro's brand blueprint. I think a lot of this sadly traces back to the death of Hasbro's chairman and chief executive officer, Brian Goldner, who passed away at 58, 3.5 years after making the statement that acknowledged their acquisition of the brand. Shortly after entering into our licensing arrangement, it became clear that now was the time to begin investing in unlocking Power Rangers' full potential. We see significant opportunity for Power Rangers across our entire brand blueprint, including toys and games, consumer products, digital gaming and entertainment, as well as geographically through our global retail footprint. We couldn't be more pleased that Haim Saban will continue in a consulting role to further guide our development of this valuable property for the next generation of Power Rangers fans. It was a vague, businessy statement, the likes of which we've heard before and will undoubtedly hear again. Even when this first happened, I think we knew Hasbro were going to mix things up. So even back then, we knew Hasbro had plans to do something different with Power Rangers than what Saban Brands had been doing. In truth, what we got in the first 5 years wasn't that different at all. Now, as we're firmly eschewed in the 2nd ever Power Rangers hibernation period, I think there are 10 things Hasbro did that have led us to the decimated place we are now. Let's discuss how Hasbro dismantled Power Rangers. Number 10, DVD releases. Really, it should have been Blu-ray releases by now, but go figure. Saban had always been pretty hot on the physical media train for Power Rangers, releasing multiple volumes per season, as well as the occasional complete season set. Even in Germany, Blu-rays started to appear, but did stop mid-Neo-Saban era, and DVDs were once again all we could get. However, Hasbro totally shuttered it, with not a peep from any of their seasons on disc. It's a shame, it was a good way to tangibly hold on to episodes of the show, especially when finding them can sometimes feel like whack-a-mole. They did make Beast Morphers and the first season of Dino Fury available digitally through Apple's iTunes store, at least in America, but even that seems to have been abandoned now. It might be because of the Netflix deal, we'll come on to that shortly, but regardless of how it happened, it's still a shame. It took them 20 years to release all of the seasons to that point, physically for the first time. Perhaps in another 9 years, at the 40th, we might be able to collect the next batch. Until then, finished. Number 9, the Nickelodeon cable deal. So Saban Brands had made a big score very early on by getting Power Rangers a deal to air on Nickelodeon and Nicktoons right as he bought the franchise back off of Disney. It made sense from all sides. Nick would be all too happy to pick up a series that had previously aired on their rival Disney channel. Haim needed a cable channel in the vein of the since defunct Fox Kids in order to get that classic exposure for the brand. What wore on over time though was that Nick was not necessarily the best home for PR. For one, they decimated the episode count, taking it down from 32 to just 20 per year, plus the odd special episode like, Christmas and Halloween, which are fairly unwatchable. They also had an annoying summer-long hiatus, which meant the show would air out about half a season and then vanish for months at a time, kind of killing any momentum it might have started gaining. And during that time, nearly every year without fail, one of the affiliate channels that aired Rangers in the UK or Australia would catch up and leapfrog over the domestic airings. As the seasons rolled on, the promotion started to get lazy and then slip. The template for each season's new trailer was exactly the same. It was new powers, new weapons, new Megazords. Ironically, it got old fast. Even as fans, we decreed Nick's treatment of the show was not right. It was a bit of a mess, and I don't think anyone minded too much when in Dino Fury, Netflix started to get some of the episodes on the service much quicker, and even premiered the odd season 1 episode here and there, even before Nick. So it was not a surprise when the contract expired at the end of 2021, Nick did not renew, though the already shot second half of Dino Fury would find a new home to premiere on in Netflix. But as far as cable TV was concerned, Power Rangers was done. Number 8. Netflix streaming. The Netflix arrangement, technically, there are two parts to this. Saban had established Netflix as a sort of streaming back catalogue home for the brand. You could watch any episode, any time on there. It was pretty nice. They would then add the newest season a few months after it finished airing on Nick. That was all well and good until January 2021, when basically all of the old seasons were removed from the service. We were just left with Mighty Morphin, Ninja Steel, and Beast Morphers. They X'd out of the 20 seasons in between those. They did work around it by gradually bringing them to YouTube, so that's great, and in a sense is even freer than Netflix ever was. But it was a lot easier to navigate between seasons and auto-watch multiple episodes with that old Netflix arrangement, so that was a shame. And I'm not too sure what the terms of the deal were. Presumably Netflix either didn't want to pay as much for the lesser viewed show seasons anymore, or maybe Hasbro thought they could make more off it by doing their own thing with it on YouTube. Whichever company decreed it, the decision meant an effective cleaning of house for any Power Rangers search that you made on Netflix. Kind of like when an artist wipes their entire Instagram for some unknown reason before an album launch, Hasbro kept to the staples, Mighty Morphin, plus the two most recent seasons. I suppose it meant that when Netflix became the global distributor of Dino Fury Season 2 the next year, it meant that that series was much more prominent in a Power Rangers search than it would have been amongst 24 other show thumbnails that all kind of look the same. Global premieres was the big victory and experiment for the brand in 2022 and 2023. What would happen to the show if it was instantly available pretty much everywhere? It meant that they could control the global rollout in ways they hadn't been able to influence during the Disney or Nickelodeon eras. Mighty Morphin Power Rangers Once and Always had a big rollout in April 2023, but then marred by an actors' strike, the Cosmic Fury promotion was hindered, shall we say, in autumn 2023, but represented another global launch. It did seem to be over way too quick though, and I do still think that was one series that would have benefited from a weekly approach, not least in that the fans would have had time to speculate and discuss the building storyline. As it was like 3.5 hours of content you could marathon in one sitting and be done with. Happy anniversary! And as we are now, there's nothing new coming or due, but it would seem likely that the Netflix experiment is here to stay, for now. And I guess in an era where streaming services are all doing badly, you may as well be on the only one that seems to have rode all the waves of change and still cracked it. Number 7, toy line completions. First noticed during the Beast Morphers Season 2, when the Beast X Lionzord was famously omitted from a toy line and season that was literally built all around it. We had figures, weapons, a morpher, an electronic statue, sound effect Megazord, a sword. We never got the Transforming Zord. The only season of Power Rangers in history, in 3 decades, not to get a single Megazord release from that season. Hasbro fumbled the bag hard on this one. That meant that once Dino Fury hit, our expectations were on the floor as to whether it would ever be completed, and I think by Cosmic Fury we knew they wouldn't even feature the entire range of Zords. They could adapt because they didn't even have enough episodes. We wouldn't even get figures for that season when those suits were clearly designed to be the cheapest action figures of all time, even more so than the 2017 movie suits. Beyond that, there was the Lightning Collection, which seemed to pick up and put down things seemingly at random. Want a partial set of Ranger helmets? How about weapons? Morphers? The roleplay stuff was unfortunately never completed. I think this was the worst choice because they could have finished those helmets and weapons and been the first toy maker ever to have done so. That was such an easy trick that they just missed, choosing to release a Zed and Drakenhead instead of yellow and black, for example. And yeah, green would have been great. Hasbro's random scattergun approach to the Power Rangers toy line was at odds with what many of us had grown up with under Bandai, and it was unfortunate not to be able to complete things that were being advertised to us in what is effectively the 20-minute toy commercial that is the TV show. Okay, maybe some of those lightning examples were exactly like Legacy, but you've got to admit, dropping the ball in the basic line was a big no. Number 6, Reboot Enthusiasm. So this is another thing that had a lot of coverage initially and yet since has gone very quiet. From Jonathan Entwistle's brand new team reboot idea to the 90s time travel movie, we've heard a lot of noise over the past few years about a Ranger reboot. Sometimes there's multiple series in development for different age groups, sometimes there's something for teens and above. I think those horrendous Cobra Kai crossover Lightning Collection figures were a nod to wanting to attract that same sort of age demographic for a series that obviously never transpired. But here we are with no show and no news on where one is in the production cycle. I think they've learned to just stop commenting on it. The speculation has only hurt the brand in the same way all those Star Wars projects that keep getting announced and not happening does. My 2 cents on this is, by all means, start again. Take the learnings from 2017. Do not lean into Iron Man designs. And if you're gonna do it, have a budget that actually supports showing the suits and swords consistently rather than in the last few minutes. If Power Rangers is a toy commercial, be a toy commercial, but be a toy commercial for things we actually want to buy and are nicely designed. And that's something that America's always struggled with. And don't do an animated series. The appeal of Power Rangers, at least to me, was that it wasn't a cartoon. You can do anything in animation, but it's much harder and much more impressive to be able to do it in live action. In another sense, the death of Jason David Frank means a reboot is the only possible route forward anyway. Perhaps that makes it the best possible outcome for Hasbro because there's no way to bring original Tommy back anymore. So it's easier than ever to just jettison the past, finally. For now though, the reboot may as well be on ice. Number 5, show production. So in 2019, Hasbro was still in an acquisition phase and bought Entertainment One for $3.8 billion in cash, which was about 15 times what they'd paid the previous year for Power Rangers in cash. The rest of that deal was all in stock. So they were gearing up to be this big entertainment powerhouse, and Power Rangers was obviously going to be one of the IPs assembled to fit this idea. However, once Brian Goldner died later on in 2019, the dream must have died with him, and no one knew how to continue. In 2022, Power Rangers moved to a bigger studio in anticipation of the reboot happening. Instead, they hastily scrambled with a late renewal of a 3rd season of Dino Fury, now called Cosmic Fury with half as many episodes, and a 1-hour 30th anniversary special which would become Once and Always and bring back 6 Mighty Morphin Ranger actors, as well as introducing a new one. So yeah, it was a strange time. Worth mentioning that Cosmic Fury represented a near full break from Japan's Super Sentai source footage. They were about 75% of the way there to making Power Rangers completely unique. And with no more Sentai adaptations expected, the future for Power Rangers can surely only be original designs, or just more periodic redesigns of MMPR, Ninja Turtle style. As soon as that was over though, everything over in New Zealand was finally dismantled. Props returned to storage in America. After shooting 20 seasons of the show in New Zealand, twice as many as they ever had shot in America, the Power Rangers live action series was no more. And I think that was one of the most shocking things here, because this isn't like when Disney stopped producing the show and sold it on. Hasbro are actively sitting on the brand and choosing not to make episodes of it. That's somehow more offensive. At least Disney had the good sense to just let it go when they decided it didn't fit their agenda and plans. Hasbro are too concerned about keeping it as an IP rather than let a rival take it on. All I can say is thank God they had Simon Bennett as Stuart for the final 3 years of the show, because he did more to right the ship than anyone ever has. Chiplin did well for Beast Morphers too. It was good to get Jason, many of the Dino Charge faces, and Dr. K in there. Lots of vague franchise lore connections, not expertly tied together, but much better than we had been getting to that point. Usually with Power Rangers, one aspect is stronger than the other, the toy line or the show, and I think we can say the show has generally been stronger than the toy line for the past few seasons in terms of the effort that they were putting into it. For now though, Power Rangers live action is effectively cancelled. Number 4, toy line existence. I wonder if Hasbro hoped to use the Lightning Collection to try and recoup as much of their investment as they could. Not sure. They did say that their sales were up for Dino Fury, but then they just ridiculously stopped making toys. And this started being rumoured mid-2023. The writing was kind of already on the wall. Cosmic Fury released a grand total of 3 products, all of which were objectively terrible. The Zap line ground to a halt after 3 releases of mixed reception. The purported Tigerzord, which was revealed before Astro Megazord was even released, never came to be either, probably for the best. And then we started circling the drain with the figures of the Lightning Collection. Waves started getting further apart, then the final wave featured 3 instead of our usual 4 figures. And all of them were from core teams that hadn't even been started yet. They could have just done Beast Morphers Silver, Dino Fury Pink, Black and Gold, and finished off 2 more teams, 2 Hasbro teams at that. But alas, it was not to be. And eventually all the people decreeing that the toy line was just on hiatus have gradually started to accept the truth. This was the classic leave the fans holding the bag, as Hasbro obscured their actual intentions of what was going on with the series toy line. And what actually was going on with the Master Morpher, I had it in my cart and I was checking out, but it sold out in 5 minutes that it was on Hasbro's UK Pulse site. They never restocked it. It was ridiculous. We've had eye-roll worthy excuses that they're resting the toys while there's no show alongside it, but I actually doubt most of the older season collectors were keeping up to date with the newer TV series anyway. For now, it's just another part of the franchise that has been picked off and ended. Number 3, comics. Comics has been an interesting one because Boom Studios have managed to tightrope walk across the 2 eras between Saban Brands and Hasbro. Yet in April 2024 they announced that the series of Power Ranger comics would be coming to an end after 8 years. And unlike when they did that gimmicky split into 2 books, Mighty Morphin and Power Rangers, this was really it this time, the end of the storyline and universe as it had been. At the moment there's not enough information to tell whether this was another Hasbro decreed decision or whether Boom were the ones to have genuinely called it quits. Perhaps there's a bit of diminishing returns from the sales, hard to say, but you must admit getting 8 years out of Mighty Morphin is pretty good going. They got 120 main issues, they were closing in on matching the count of 145 episodes of the original show that we got back in the 90s. And actually, if you factor in all the spin-off issues and things, they probably surpassed that number anyway. There's supposed to be more announcements coming from Boom at SDCC, but it's been left vague as to whether it's related to the future of the comics or just some more stuff to finish up this era with. The idea of a true reboot has been floated, and you do have to look at the timing of the recent Playmates announcement to wonder if that could be in some way connected. Anyway, more on that aspect in a minute, and I guess we'll see either way soon. But in terms of that series that included core moments like Lord Dracon's shattered grid run, it's over. Number 2, live events. So there's actually 3 aspects to this. First is the obvious one, live streams on Hasbro Pulse. These started out quite promisingly, but it soon became apparent that they just weren't giving Power Rangers the same level of care and attention as their other brands. In hindsight, it must have been sales related. Why would they waste time on something that isn't generating or equalizing their other brands? But I guess Hasbro wanted Power Rangers to be up there because it was a cost-free IP for them rather than an IP for rent like most of their other properties were. It's a shame. When it worked, it worked. And when it didn't, that live chat was vicious. Second is the extension of that, at least in person, the conventions such as Power Morphicon. Bandai had a fantastic relationship with that convention and other ones like STCC and New York Toy Fair, and each time there was an event they would rock up with exclusives, toy keynote presentations, and just generally be there for people to talk toys and take feedback, whether they acted on it or not. Hasbro did start strong with their first year in charge with the amazing display of props from Rangers Past at Morphicon and with the Megazord statue at one of the initial toy fairs. Also at Morphicon they revealed the Lightning Collection. It was all a good start, but then next time they didn't even show up, and it's extremely unlikely that there's anything to come from them at the 2024 event either. Lastly, there was the teased but never realised stage show. This was revealed way back in February 2019 and was supposed to tour the US and Canada. Please correct me if I'm mistaken, but I don't believe it ever made it out to the people, and it of course follows a similarly failed tour originated by Saban Brands called Power Rangers Live just the year before in 2018. I guess there just won't be any Power Rangers stage shows backing up the LA freeway again anytime soon. 90s reference for you there, guys. Also, what happened to the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade balloon? That thing was iconic, and they should have just paid the money to renew it. For now, live events are dead. And number 1, Outsourced. And so we come to the current lay of the land. Hasbro have become the arbiter godfather of the franchise and are using it as a lightning rod to attract bids from whichever company want to put themselves into the pulpit and try and encourage fans to shell out for their take on Ranger toys. Yeah, we've seen more merchandise than ever before come from the multitude of brand deals Hasbro have okayed, including 3-0, Super 7s, those weird Dino Megazords, and now Playmates. In one sense, it's the best time ever to be getting into the brand as a collector, as you have all these highly detailed, very expensive ornaments being produced. If the quality of Hasbro's in-house collectors, action figures and Zords weren't quite up there for you, perhaps these other brands will be. The problem, other than price, is that none of these operations, I think, are likely to ever complete anything major, or even do it well to begin with. Is a poison chalice to be the maker of Power Rangers toys? It's not something to take on lightly, because the fans are critical and have been scorned before, including recently. And you have to remember that as fans, many of us are cynical now about starting collections over. So many things are overpromised and under-delivered on. Hasbro stated that they paid Saban Brands $22.25 million for the Power Rangers Master Toy License Agreement, announced by the parties in February of 2018 and scheduled to begin in 2019. What ended up happening was that they used that amount as a down payment as part of their full takeover of the franchise, but it makes me wonder how much Playmates have had to put down in order to secure the toy license for 2025. I expect less, as Playmates won't be the only game in town producing Power Rangers merchandise this time, though they are the de facto operator in the kids' toy market, and they say they have intentions to produce toys for all ages. But before we jump to conclusions, I don't think that necessarily means teens and adults focused. I think it might be more like their classic Turtles figures, where the appeal lies somewhere in the middle. I just hope that they can do high quality plastic Megazords with nice joints and non-abrasive transformations again. Is that so much to ask? On a side note, it's wild to see a toy company licensing out the brand that they bought to another toy company. Hasbro have built up their reputation as the toy maker for a lot of Disney properties like Marvel and Star Wars. Yeah, they own Transformers outright, but how funny that even a property that they took such quick steps to initiate a buyout of has fallen down several rungs of priority, and now they're taking rental fees from other companies in order to get some profit off of it. I just wouldn't have expected this turn of events. So the Power Rangers toy line is on the move again, with the third toy company in 31 years set to be doing the product for it. Maybe it'll be a good thing for the franchise, even if right now it doesn't feel like a good thing for the fans. In a sense, Hasbro have become Saban Brands, only with more of a Disney head, because their empire is so vast. Power Rangers is just a tiny part of it. If it's not impressing them, then they don't need to lose too much sleep on trying to make it work. Brian Goldner's media house dream could not be realised, and once it became clear that Power Rangers was going to require more work than Hasbro had time to commit to, they started doing wild moves like this. Hasbro have thrown in the towel in terms of merchandising, but they're now conducting lots of split tests by allowing other companies to take all the risk on what sells and what doesn't. Eventually, they'll have to report back to Hasbro and tell them exactly what aspects of the series sells commercially. And I do believe Hasbro want to bring it back at some stage, but what that will look like may be so unrecognisable, I don't know if we'll even be keen on it. Perhaps then though, they'll have done enough to attract a new young audience, the very thing that's been evading them all along. Guys, what do you make of all this? Do you agree with me that Hasbro made these 10 choices that have effectively dismantled Power Rangers as we know it? I think dismantle is the right word, whatever your opinion or stake on this issue. It's neither positive nor negative, it just is. Let me know what you think in the comments. Thank you as well to my Patreons. The next video over there is what's going to happen on the main channel in 2024. And I'm after feedback on that because it's not fixed yet and I can change some of those ideas around if it doesn't sound right. So check it out and let me know. And the next video over here will be an extension of my 7th point in this video. What do our incomplete Lightning Collection teams look like? Until then, see you later.